Hello, and welcome to another edition of Apes in the Home. This is Mrs. Middleton, and I will be taking you through the basics of carrying capacity. You've already seen an image very similar to this when talking about biotic potential when discussing K and R selected species. Carrying capacity is the maximum population size of the species that an environment can sustain indefinitely given the resources of the environment. When a population exceeds its carrying capacity, which can be written as K, overshoot occurs. Obviously, if a population overshoots, there can be environmental impacts. The population can deplete the resources of that area, which can then trickle down to the other species living in that area. There are two types of population growth over time. The first part of the image, the S-curve, or logistic curve, is what we saw in the last slide. There's a time of exponential growth of the population, so initially the first part of the graph looks kind of like a J-curve, but then it transitions into a time where the population slows down and eventually oscillates around an average population size. Where it oscillates, you might remember from the previous slide, is the carrying capacity, and is usually controlled by competition of resources, an increase in predators, or an increase of disease. This oscillation around the carrying capacity is typical of a population that has stabilized. The S-curve is usually more characteristic of our K-selected species, or species that have a longer lifespan. The J-curve, or exponential curve, on the other hand, can only occur when there is plenty of resources, no competition, a lack of predators or disease, and favorable adiabatic resources such as nutrients in the ground or water. J-curve is usually characteristic of short-lived species that multiply quickly, such as rodents or insects, and often can be associated with invasive species. A major ecological effect of population overshoot is dieback of the population, which can be severe or catastrophic because of the lack of available resources leading to famine, disease, and conflict. It's very common for R-selected species that multiply quickly to use up all of their resources in the area and then have a dieback that completely eliminates the species in that region. As you can see with this image of the moose, or the curve from the previous slide, a population might start off as a J-curve, as time goes on transitions into an S-curve as the carrying capacity works to stabilize the population over time. These are the basics of carrying capacity. I hope it all made sense, but if it did not, remember you can email your teacher with questions, bring your questions to your teacher the next day, or look it up on Google and YouTube. Remember to think about how this can apply to human population, as this is the next section coming up soon. Are humans a J or an S-curve? Have we reached our carrying capacity? Anyway, something to think about. Have a great one.